Coming up on Valley News Live at 6, concerns at Sanford as the hospital is nearing capacity.
Signatures not validated regarding the attempted Fargo School Board special election. We hear from the woman who did the counting.
Plus, details on the new program to help child care providers pay their workers. Valley News Live at 6 starts right now.
This is Valley News Live at 6.
Good evening, everyone. Sanford health officials say they're having strong concerns. COVID-19 hospitalizations across all of their facilities could exceed 200 within the next 2 weeks.
Currently, there are nearly 160 patients hospitalized for COVID-19 across 22 of Sanford's facilities. ICU capacity has reached 45. That's nearly double compared to last month, according to new data released by the hospital. And patients on ventilators have nearly tripled from 11 to 34.
What this story basically tells me is this continues to be a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Unfortunately, those folks that haven't gotten the vaccine still continue to be the highest risk of people that we see coming into the hospital right now.
Right now, Sanford says there are 544 patients hospitalized in Fargo.
In Minnesota, there are fewer pediatric hospital beds available to treat kids who are getting sick. The Minnesota Hospital Association saying staffing is just one piece contributing to the limited pediatric beds. They say other contributing factors are respiratory illnesses, winter viruses like RSV, and mental health crises. A doctor with MHA says those with chronic illnesses should be mindful during this crunch.
Make sure that they are seeking care, staying connected with the primary care provider, and following their guidance.
The MHA recommends following CDC guidelines, wearing a mask, practice social distancing, staying home if you're sick, and getting the vaccine if you're eligible.
There will be no recall election for the Fargo Public Schools School Board. This was determined after the school district's business manager says she found some of the signatures did not meet the criteria set forth by state law. Jackie Gapp, who went through the signature validation process, says that they were thorough in vetting the signatures.
It was a interesting process to learn, to go through, but we did, again, we relied on what the law states and making sure that we were compliant with what was expected of us during this process.
We've just heard the group behind the recall has started a GoFundMe to recall the Fargo School Board. Tonight at 10, we'll hear from one of the school board members that was facing the possibility of that recall election.
Child care providers in Minnesota can now apply for grants to get direct monthly payments to help stabilize their businesses as the economy recovers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz announcing today that child care providers have access to a $300 million state grant program that will last through June of 2023. The program will help child care providers pay their workers and ensure benefits. Child care providers eligible for the grants must be licensed, certified, or registered and in good standing with the Department of Human Services. Grant payments will be determined by how many employees the provider has. The state will pay $430 a month for each full-time worker. Some child care programs serving families with low incomes could qualify for higher amounts.
Now here's Hutch with a first look at our forecast. Hutch?
Stacey, thanks so much. A lot of blue skies as we head into our Wednesday evening across the valley. Not much weather to worry about on this autumnal equinox. Take a look at 2:20 today is when that equinox happened. That's when the direct rays of the sun are exactly over the equator. About 12 hours of daylight and about 12 hours of darkness at all locations across the globe. And we are heading for longer nighttime hours here in the northern hemisphere now, as those direct rays of the sun dip a little farther south. Now, here's a look at what we have going on with those blue skies tonight. Expect that sun to set exactly in the west as we head into the nighttime hours. It's very quiet, still breezy though, with a few gusts upwards of 30 miles per hour continuing at least until sunset. Look at the 80s out to the west. For us today, we made it into the 70s in almost all locations. It is a little cooler in central Minnesota. This evening in Fargo, temperatures sneak down into those mid-50s by bedtime and overnight. The south winds will continue. We have a cold front coming tomorrow. I'll tell you how that impacts your day tomorrow here in a few moments.
All right. Thanks so much, Hutch.
34 DUI charges now have the potential to be thrown out in court after a 2-year review by the North Dakota auditor showing some of the tests were done by unexpired equipment while other tests used unapproved devices.
Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter Bailey Hurley spoke with officials today on what this means and which local department was found at fault the most.
Nearly 9,000 breath alcohol tests were administered in North Dakota from July 2018 to June 2020. And of those, 34 people now have the possibility to get out of those charges.
There is potential for other evidence in those cases, like a blood alcohol test. So just because this test may be invalid for that individual, that doesn't mean that they didn't still have other evidence that would confirm a DUI.
Of the 34, Batter says nearly half of those drivers had convictions of previous DUIs, and 75% of the error tests showed drivers at breath alcohol levels over 0.1.
That affects the safety of everyone, as well as the fairness of those test results.
She says the audit was not done on roadside DUI tests, rather those given at a police department or county jail.
The Intoxilizer 8000 is what it's called.
Of the 27 expired tests, data shows 12 of those alone were conducted by West Fargo police officers, the largest number of faulty tests in the state. Batter adding suggestions were made both to the Attorney General and State Crime Lab to make sure history doesn't repeat itself. Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
The state audit also shows West Fargo police were administering DUI tests on a piece of equipment that was 153 days past its expiration. Meanwhile, the audit shows Fargo and Jamestown ran a total of 3 tests on equipment less than a month past the expiration date. We reached out to West Fargo Police and they had this to say. The West Fargo Police Department identified the expired canister issue in February 2020 and immediately took corrective actions. Since that time, we've trained more staff and changed our protocol to add safeguards. We're committed to testing everyone against the same standard equally, but also to ensure those who do commit the act of impaired driving are held accountable.
In Moorhead, police posted on its Facebook page that they've seen an increase in fraud reports of a scam going throughout the area. In this scam, the responsible party is disguising themselves as a well-known company and contacting people to update their security information on their computer. Now, if you find yourself in a similar situation, you should search for the contact information for that company that they are claiming to be and check with them directly for any flags on your account.
Tonight in Bemidji, 3 armed and dangerous men are on the loose after police say they were involved in a shooting at an apartment complex. That happened early this morning at Pine Ridge Apartments on 30th Street Northwest. Police received several reports of gunshots. One caller told police he'd been shot and was driving himself to the hospital. The man told police 3 men surrounded his car and the gunman began firing into his windshield. He was not able to give detailed descriptions.
For the past month, North Dakota lawmakers have been working on redistricting the state. As that work continues, more rifts are popping up among the map makers. One of the biggest struggles, prioritizing incumbency over keeping entire counties together. Some lawmakers have stated publicly they drew lines in certain places to protect their colleagues' places in the legislature, while others say the addresses of the incumbents shouldn't play a factor.
Every one of us so far has had conflicting priorities. That's what's going to happen because we did not come to any sort of agreement, to the best of my knowledge, as a committee before we all went into doing this.
The committee overseeing the new lines submitted its full draft on the new state map earlier today, and we'll know more tomorrow.
The Red River Women's Clinic downtown Fargo is the only provider of abortion services in North Dakota, and tonight they're gearing up for more protesters. The Catholic Diocese of Fargo is starting its 40 Days of Life campaign and says it plans on stationing people outside the clinic for 16 hours a day for 40 straight days. The clinic's website says it's looking for volunteers because it is frequently the target of anti-abortion protesters who participate in sidewalk bullying.
We're still receiving calls from some of you viewers who are having a reception problem with the Channel 11 signal. It involves those of you, like myself, who are DirecTV customers. DirecTV continues to tell us that their equipment is not properly receiving our signal. Well, our signal is functioning normally. The equipment is not picking it up as it should. We are working together to get this issue solved as quickly as possible.
Later on Valley News Live at 6, how a TikTok with a simple message is really making a difference for a West Fargo business.
And right now, things are cooling off on this autumnal equinox in portions of Canada to the north, Alaska. Near freezing temperatures there as the chill is on. For us, the colors are changing. A drive out to the lakes area may be fun. We'll have details on what you can expect as a cold front moves through next.